Voiceover with your host, Dee Foster III, where we discuss relevant topics that affect the culture with bold, independent commentary. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and encouraged.
It's that time again. Welcome to the Voice Over There podcast. I'm your host, Dee Foster III, CEO and President of Wake Up Global Networks International. And I want to say thank you for joining us for another brand new show. Now, you know the spill before you get started. Like, share, subscribe to the channel so you know when we bring in you the new fresh content. Have you checked out the Voice Over the Day audio podcast? It's right here. You can go and check it out. All shout out to all the replay crew. We deal with an urban perspective. We do our investigative journalism like we're going to do today. And so we encourage you to be a part of that podcast. I love the audio podcast because you can just put it in your ear. And if you're on your way home from work, it uploads live every Wednesday at 12 noon. Whether you're going to the gym, whether you're walking, and you can get real fresh, new investigative content, and we deal with the culture on Wednesday. I want to say thank you for all of your love, all of your support. Hope you had a great Juneteenth holiday, and I'm telling you, it's hot. I'm in the DMV, and it is hot as all outdoors, but that's what summer is about. I'm so excited. Can you believe we are almost halfway more than through the year already? More than halfway through the year. And I'm telling you, I have just been so blessed through the last 4 to 5 months of this podcast with your support, your love, your following, your liking, and your sharing. I want to ask you a question. Do you catch us every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. right here, WPB Media, for the Voice of Hope Connection? It's just maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, where we just give you a word of encouragement to make it through the week. Every Sunday morning right here. Check it out. I believe you're going to be blessed as we give you a word of encouragement that'll help you make your week. I always say we never know what we're going to deal with during the week, but we know one thing, that there's always a word. I want to say shout out to all of the crew. Shout out. I want to say thank you so much for your support. You can feel free to email us at thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Also, dads, hope you had a happy Father's Day. That's what I wanted to say. I want to say thank you. I am so honored. I am so honored to get all of the honor and respect and the wishes from our spiritual sons and daughters and mentees that shout me out on Father's Day, sold love gifts. I appreciate you so very much. And what an honor it is to have somebody to say that you have been a blessing in my life. I'm privileged by that. I don't take that for granted. And yet, with all of my faults and failures and missteps, that there are some people who recognize and honor me as their leader and have invited me into their space to impart. It don't get no better than that. I'm telling you, it just don't get no better than that. So if you're a dad, I hope you had a great Father's Day, and you got all the love and honor that you deserved. All right, let's get into y'all like, share, follow. Let's get into some things. Now, I want to make a couple of disclaimers at the door, right? The first one is because of the context and content that I want to bring to this particular topic. It will be 2 series. So today I will introduce my thesis. I will introduce the subject. I will introduce why I feel like I feel about the subject. And then next week, we're going to deal with the content. Today, I'm going to deal with context. Next week, I'm going to deal with content. Why are you doing that? I understand even with virtual, people's attention span is limited. People live a very busy life. And unless you're live, I don't believe an hour and a half podcast is sustainable. I mean, that's just my opinion. Some people do that, but I believe on a recording that 30 minutes at max, people will sit there and watch you, if that long. So I can have continuity and fully cover the story, it's going to be in 2 parts. The next thing is, I want to say up front, I want to put out a disclaimer that I am not for or against fraternities, sororities. They will be the highlight of our discussion today. But I am not coming on to protect or to deflect from any of the Divine Nine. I'm coming on to reflect a principle that I personally believe has been broken by a few. And I would like the opportunity to freely address that. All right? My number 3, I have to say all this up front, intent is not to discard anyone's decision on either spectrum. I respect all persons' opinions and all persons' decision. So I'm not coming on here to say who was right and who was wrong. I'm simply dealing with a principle that I believe has to be the focus because it has been broken in my strong opinion. Okay? Now, having said that, if you've listened to my audio podcast on Wednesday, I had a podcast entitled Stop Lying on the Divine Nine. And I go into that. I encourage you to go back and to view that. Today, I want to talk or discuss or look at the context of leave quietly. Yeah, and I mean, I feel very strong about the principle, but I'm going to be respectful. But I think this is something that has to be talked about. It's called leave quietly. Now, no brag, but I've been blessed to serve several ministries and several ministers and leaders in my lifetime. What a blessing and an honor. As well as I've been blessed to lead congregations in my lifetime. What an honor. Because of my assignment, I do a lot of going into organizations, into ministries, and then leaving. I never enter, and I think it's understood from the door, to pretty much stay. I am a helper. So in my travels, in my years, which I've spent most of my years in ministry, I spend a lot of time going into organizations to fulfill an assignment and then exiting. Out of all of those experiences, which have been wonderful, except for one time on one of my departures, all of my experiences were amicable. Now, even with the one that didn't end quite as amicable, I still had discussion. I still made the leadership aware of decisions. There were conversations had even with that. So for whatever reason, that this is not something I'm going to get into, the conversation with the leadership did not go well with them, but I still did the right thing. One thing, if you know D. Foster 3, I'm always thinking about principle and doing it right, because I have such a deep understanding of the law of reciprocity. And that is, whatever I put out there, whatever I do that affects others, that energy and that law someday, some way will affect me. Now, not that I've been perfect. I'm not claiming perfection, but I've tried my best to be a man of principle when it comes to dealing with responsibility. Now, I'm going somewhere. That's why I said this will have to be a two-part series. I've always believed and still do in the honor system, HONOR. That is, if the institution, in other words, and my time was up, it was my duty, hear this word, to go quietly. Now, I want you to remember that because that's going to be very significant as we get into this subject. Whenever an institution and my departure were at hand, or my season was up for serving in a particular area and a particular leader, whatever the condition, and like I said, 99.9.9 was amicable, only that one. But even in that one, whatever condition I left, I think, unless people want to lie, which I don't think, I left quietly. Now, what does it mean? Because that's the subject matter of today's show. What does it mean to leave quietly? Doesn't mean leave without saying goodbye. Doesn't mean to leave in the middle of the night. Doesn't mean to leave to wish well wishes. That's not the context that I'm using the word quietly in. When I use the word leaving quiet, number one, if there have been any, I keep my negative opinions about my experience to myself. That's the first thing. Quietly. I keep, if there have been any, and some there were, many they weren't, I keep my negative opinions to myself. I don't post them. I don't have conversation. I don't dog the experience. I keep my negative, if there are any, opinions to myself. Secondly, quietly, I fail, and I think everybody can say this, even in the non-amicable relationship, to influence. I fail to influence others to leave because I have decided, or we have decided, that my season is over. I fail quietly. I fail to go and say, I'm leaving, you stand in here. They have nothing to do. I want you to get, and I'm going somewhere. That's why I said there's going to be two parts. Because I need to break this down because this subject is so very important. And a lot of people are being dissuaded by the loud voices in this matter. And I've simply come to be a contrary, not contrary as contrary, but a counter. That's the word. I've come to be a counter voice to all the noise that I'll get to in a minute. So quietly, I've always tried my best and have succeeded, I believe, to leave quiet. You can never say, I said negative, or I spreaded junk, or spreaded some things because I was blessed to be up close, that I go out and I really don't like this. If you're blessed to be close, and unless it's abuse, allegations, molestation, something with children, but if it's just a difference of opinion and y'all didn't see eye to eye, don't go out and kill the organization that gave you opportunity. I don't know, I should have called this Lessons in Integrity Part 2, right? But anyway, so leaving quietly. I don't go around, never have, if people found out I was leaving, they found out on their own. But I never went around and said, I'm leaving. Follow me, follow me. No, because that's the Absalom spirit that David's son had that will always come back and boomerang. Paul, not just with church, but with anything or anyone, because spiritual law is spiritual law. You said, you sound like you're teaching again. Well, am I? I'm discussing. I am a teacher. I am a spiritual leader. So at times in these recordings, you'll hear that tone come out. And then at other times, you'll hear D. Foster 3 like you heard on the audio podcast. So it depends on what I'm talking about. Because I'm talking a lot of spiritual principles, though the subject is not necessarily a spiritual subject. I am who I am, right? I believe that even if your experience became unpleasant, and at least honor the reason that you thought it noteworthy to connect to that organization in the first place. Even if you had a downer, and 50% of your experiences were negative. There was something about the organization. There was something about the leadership that calls you. There was something about the mission that calls me to connect in the first place. So even if all the experiences were negative, at least honor the reason or the noteworthiness that calls me to say, I want to connect to them, or I want to connect to it from the first place. Now, that's my foundation. I begin with that analogy because everything that I explained that we should do, namely leaving quietly, that's not what's going on, or that's not what's happening around the country when it comes to regarding the members or the previous members of the Divine Nine. What? The 9 fraternities and sororities that make up the Divine Nine, basically founded in HBCU school. There is a total. And now remember my disclaimers in the beginning. That's why I'm not here to defend. I'm not here to be pro. I'm not here to be con. As you've seen so far, hopefully, I'm here to defend a principle of honor and respect that I feel very deeply has been broken concerning affiliations with the Divine Nine. Now, if you're listening did I tell you to like? Did I tell you to share? Did I tell you to follow? Please do. Please share this, especially if you are bro or you are soror. Share this. Share this. Or you've been having this conversation with somebody. Share this. The Divine Nine, for those of you who may not be aware, consists of 9 recognized Black Greek letter organizations. Now, I'm going to deal with all of this Greek because that's come up in it, and a whole lot of stuff. That's next week. I'm just going to introduce the subject next week. That's the great thing. And I don't like breaking stuff up, but I don't want to rush through it. Certain subjects, especially when they're delicate like this, you have to be thorough, you have to do your research, and you got to put it out there right and knowledgeable and educate at the same time. So the Divine Nine consists of 9 recognized Black Greek letter organizations, which are members of the National Panhellenistic Council. Now watch this. Each group has different principles, and missions that drive their members. Some are AKAs, some are betas, some are Kappa, some are Gamma. Y'all know. I became very familiar with this because a lot of their home is rooted in Howard University. Members of the Divine Nine were, now listen to this, everything I'm saying is important. Come close. That's why I'm not going to be long, because everything I'm saying, there's no fillers in this show. Now, when I say stick a pin in it, that means this is key, and I'm going to revisit it to prove my theses. Each group has different principles and missions that drive their members. Members of the Divine Nine were influential in African civil rights movements in the 50s and the 60s. Okay, that's very key. So in the conception, I think the first one was Alpha Phi Alpha, if I'm not mistaken, in 1906 on the campus of Cornell University. I want you to go back to the missions, to the beginnings, to the 50s, to the 40s. They were very influential in the American, and you can Google this. I'm not reading anything. This is not my content. I just Googled it and talked to certain people that are in it to get more information. But I'm gonna get into my theses next week. I'm just presenting it. They were very instrumental in civil matters. They weren't formed just to drink, just to have sex, just to have party. Now, I didn't say they didn't do that. That's why I'm giving you some history. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is bliss. These organizations have a rich history and legacy that still impacts modern culture. Some of the best are apart. One of my dear brothers and friends, and has been there servicing the community, and I'm not going to name drop through this, okay? But I'm just giving you an example that family man, met his wife, met his children, met his dad even, been to his fundraisers. Delegate Senator Charles Sidnor, just to give you one example. Now, I'm not going to name, I know a lot of people, but I'm just saying, upstanding, professional. Not drunks, as some suppose. I'm sure some are drunk. But outstanding attorneys, outstanding congresspeople, outstanding family people. All right, share this. Shout out to Delegate or Senator Charles Sidnor. So these organizations have a rich history that still impact culture. They give to the community. They give scholarships, right? And I'm gonna get into a lot of that next week, all right? Now, what is the purpose? Because whatever we connect to, we should connect because we understand the purpose of it. Everything should be driven by a mission statement. Wake Up Global Networks has a mission statement. It has a motto. Everything. And if you join anything, it is erroneous to join it without understanding its stated purpose. And what keeps me connected is seeing the fulfillment of its purpose. Now, there will be some things any organization does that has nothing to do with its purpose, and it has that right as long as it keeps its purpose in focus. That's cool. Wake Up Global Networks had an outing. That's not in its purpose, but we had an outing. So somebody who connected because of the purpose can't say, I renege because they had an outing and that wasn't in the purpose. No, but the purpose of reaching community, we just went to Furley. I just talked to one of our other senators. We're about to make another connection. We teach every week, which is a part of our purpose, to educate. We cross-pollinate when it comes to different people in different professions globally, or we're well on our purpose. Though we may do a little sideliner, but the sideliner doesn't define the organization. So a party is not the purpose of the Divine Nine. Hanging out, we're going to do that, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is we develop leaders, and that they have done. We give back to our communities, and that they do. So I can't say I'm going to drop out of, you don't drop out of your church, because your church, hopefully, if you go to church or mosque, they have a written statement of purpose. And because they do things that are outside of their purpose, you don't say, oh, I'm rolling out, because this wasn't in the purpose. Heck, we do things that are not in our purpose. But it doesn't take away our purpose. I'm dealing with something here. Share this. Now, what is the purpose? The group's founded mainly at HBCUs. It's always us. As I said on my audio podcast, whenever something exclusive, then it's always something. Everybody else can have exclusivity. But that's why I said this is two parts. Because it's going to be kind of intense. So come on in for a while. Because I got to be a counter voice. This is the voiceover. My assignment is still prophetic no matter what I do. I've got to be in a prophetic voice against all other voices. Will lift a voice of righteousness, injustice, and equality. So, the group founded mainly at HBCUs begin as a way, hear this. You can Google this, but obviously some have it. To connect, I love it, relationship, and build support networks. Sound like Wake Up Global Networks. That's what we do. In the face of exclusion from predominantly, give us our own, we've been excluded from mainstream, so we're going to use our brilliance and our intelligence to come together to create something predominantly we were excluded from white Greek letter organizations. So we're going to come together and create our own. I'm taking you back to the original history because I've been hearing many people talk about that who are denouncing the Divine Nine. All I hear them talk about is what goes on within from their perspective. But I'll get to that. I promise you. This is the voiceover now, right? Where we say straight, no chaser. And so 4 sororities and 5 fraternities known as the Divine Mind. Divine Mind, that is true. These people are brilliant. I know a lot. They're brilliant. They're business owners. They're influencers. They are community organizers. Brilliant. They're not all saved, but they're brilliant. They're making contributions. Let me say, they're not all saved, not all of them, but they're brilliant. They're making contributions. Most of them love God. They're not all saved, but they're brilliant and making contributions, sometimes more contributions than your church. But I'm going to get to that. Because there's a lot of pastors that have jumped on the bandwagon. Like this. Share this. That's why it's 2 weeks. So, having said that, lately, if you've been on the internet, you know that there is a huge movement to get people to denounce their membership. I'm saying everything I'm saying today is key. Their membership and their commitment to their fraternity or sorority. There's a huge movement on the internet. I mean, and if you don't discern, you would just, some of them come on, can barely talk. And I'm not, as I said before, I am not making fun of anybody's decision to denounce or to remove themselves. I'm dealing with a principle of them not going quietly. That's what I'm dealing with. The principle of not going quietly. And they come on all emotional. And they've had this come to Jesus moment. And the people, and I'm going to get to this next week, the people involved don't know what they're into. And I'm going to get to that next week because that's an insult. You mean you the only one? No, everybody out of the 4 million members, 4 million at least, of the Divine Nine, none of them know what they're involved in if they choose to stay. Huh? And so, and please let the two things be clear. I'm not attempting to defend. I'm not one to defend, right? So I'm not attempting to defend the Divine Nine. No, I'm here to judge the decisions that those who said they have been led to denounce membership. But my bone of contention, my pushback is how their departure has not been quiet, in my opinion, and therefore very, very divisive. I simply will ever believe that divisiveness equals godliness. So if there is and it is divisive, because anything that divides, that's what divisive means, is not of God. So the leaving for them may be of God, but how they are leaving cannot be. Yeah, I said it. You can put your comment in the chat. You can email me, thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. For some, they're sincere. But for some, it's their 15 minutes of fame. And for some, they've never even been a member. They're jumping on the bandwagon for clicks, likes, and views. Yeah, I said it. In my opinion, and I'm going to wrap this up. I told you this is going to get very intense, but very interesting and very educational. That's what the voiceover, I didn't come on here to sound like anybody else. I didn't come on the internet to be like anybody else. There's enough of the same stuff on the net. I'm not a parrot, right? Anyway, and there's a lot of good information on the net. I'm not here for the clicks and the views. I'm here, as we say, to uplift, to educate, and to have some fun, and to encourage. And the main thing I encourage here is think for yourself. That's my mantra of life. Think for yourself. Don't let the emotions overwhelm you. Now, in my opinion, if an entity, a church, an organization, even a relationship, have served you a year, 2 years, 5 years, 5 months, and you thought it noteworthy to be affiliated in the first place, right? Because you had to think, like I started off by saying, you had to think someplace it was noteworthy. Okay? Now, if you didn't think it was noteworthy, then that says something about you. So I hope you thought, even though It might have become uncomfortable or taken a turn for the worse at some point. But at some point, right, you had to think it was noteworthy. Unless somebody drugged you, dragged you, forced you to pledge, forced you to cross, right? That's a whole lot of drugging. That's a whole lot of dragging, because that's a whole long, lengthy process. But leaving quietly means if an organization at some point in time has served me and I thought it was noteworthy for my presence, when you deem it time to go, when you deem, okay, whatever experience you say you had, I don't knock that or judge that, or maybe the organization has taken a turn that you didn't foresee, I don't knock that or judge that. All I'm saying is the honorable thing is to leave the institution quietly, leaving it with its, if you found it there first, dignity and respect. So you can maintain your respect and you can maintain your dignity. Leaving an organization with dignity and respect does not include going on the internet and soiling its image through your piety or through your religiosity or through your spiritual intimidation. I refuse to believe that. Now, that was the introduction. Next week, I'm going to get into some of the unfounded reasons. We're going to look at them. Okay, I've heard what they had to say. Unfortunately, I haven't heard a lot of people come out in the defense. I mean, I've heard some people pass over it, but maybe one or two people have done an in-depth talk like this, especially members that are involved. I invited a couple of people that are a part to come on and be the voice of the Divine Nine. But I can be the voice, because I'm not dealing with the organization as such. I'm dealing with the principle, and I know principle. I teach principle, and I make it my best to live by principle. So I'm qualified to deal with the subject. Next week, we're going to look at some of, I've heard them out, and I got questions. Like this, share this, follow. On behalf of Wake Up Global Networks and myself, D. Foster III, I want to say thank you for tuning in. This is part 1 of Leading Quietly. Check me out on Sunday morning, 7 a.m. for the Believers, the Voice of Hope, connection. The Voice of Hope connection. Until next week, this is D. Foster III saying, you have a voice. Keep lifting it. Peace.
Thank you for being a part of The Voiceover. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected to our upcoming shows and guests. Instagram at The Voiceover Radio. Twitter at DPropheticI. That's the letter D, prophetic, EYE. If this show has enriched you in any way, please share The Voiceover among your circle. Until next time, keep allowing your voice to be heard.